Ah yes, LucasArts. This obviously wasn't made by them, but I do think that it's worth mentioning. They're pretty much the company for point-and-click adventure games. After playing this, it got me thinking, how many clones are there? I actually very rarely came across them. This is one of those cases. It is a very obscure game, but of course a pretentious hipster like me has to try it out. Is this one that will make George Lucas jealous? Or should you just throw it down the trash compactor? Stay tuned to find out.
Who's that pointing and clicking his way to internet fame? It might be a little too cool for your mainstream kind of games. But if you like retro consoles and obscure PC stuff, then you might just be hip enough for this pretentious hipster.
This was developed by Housemarque Limited. They still make games to this day, although I haven't really heard of most. Returnal looks like something that is absolutely praised for the PS5, with a pretty high Metacritic score. This is pretty much one of their first projects. It's a Finnish company, and they had the ambitious goal of creating what they've called the first Finnish adventure game. They have been known for making quite a few things, but this is their first full-on project. Before that, they were known to be quite good in the demo scene. I'm not 100% sure about how they are, but they are basically like these kinds of demos you see with new graphics cards years ago. They're basically presentations and various aspects of digital art meant to push stuff to their limits. It tends to be more in the home computer scene, although they have presentations called demo parties. Unfortunately, I couldn't really find any of the demo scenes that they've done. The fact that it's a Finnish company probably doesn't help either. However, some of the developers were known for making the Amiga shmup called Stardust, which I've been told is super underrated and I can't wait to play. The most famous of all is the Finnish composer Johan Valtonen. The games don't really seem too big of a deal, except maybe city skylines, but he's mostly known for doing orchestral renditions of famous video game music. This did pique my interest because I was really curious to see the gameplay and the game mechanics and the overall graphics of it. I mean, they were in the demo scene, which is known to have impressive stuff for the time, so this had to have been at least interesting. And well, I want to show this before explaining the plot. My jaw dropped at this. They take the 2D graphics that these point-and-click games of the era were known for, and apply sort of 2.5D effect to it. I mean, how mind-blowing is this? The weird part is that with distribution issues, this was delayed by 2 years. If they released this in 1994, then I assume more minds would have been blown before then. But before I get carried away, I should probably talk about the intro. You play as Benjamin Richards, a teenager. During Halloween, his uncle tries to activate a wormhole spawner, which theoretically allows travel through millions of light years in a split second. When it was activated, a lightning bolt hit a machine, making it even more powerful, and the sky rips open. Yeah, get the reference so far? Then it goes to a galaxy far, far away. Yet another reference. An entity, being chased by a ship, dives through the wormhole with the ship chasing it. They are both confused as to where they are, especially the ship, and the squadron of aliens who look like Casper the Friendly Ghost are sent to Earth to kidnap whoever was responsible for doing this. They then land and enter the uncle's mansion. Ben hides and his uncle is then abducted. It is then your job to rescue him and save the day. Unfortunately, the graphics and every other aspect peak during the intro, but I will say that this game is still quite great. It's just that rarely have I seen something so well done in a game of this era. Applying the stylized effect to the mostly standard graphics was such a great idea. The voice acting in it was top notch as well.
Now look here, Ben. This is a historical moment. I will now attempt to activate my latest invention, the wormhole spawner. I'm so thrilled about all this, there's no telling what will happen when I pull this switch here.
What's this thing supposed to do anyway?
I have no idea.
This leads to my initial disappointment of this. Only the opening cutscene has voice acting. I mean, it was a budget title, so it makes sense, but the voice acting was so phenomenal that I wish I would have seen more. However, you can still see the talent evolving in the technical aspect. The animations in it are so fluid. They just felt so much smoother than they do from other games from this era. It was at this point where I started seeing more Star Wars references. In your bedroom, there was that walker thingy from Star Wars, and then there was that YouTube video of the game's intro that the company posted. The quote is, "The game was heavily inspired and influenced by great LucasArts adventure games like Maniac Mansion, Zak McKracken and the Alien Mindbenders, Loom, etc." It later becomes even more apparent with the humor in the game, and that's ignoring all those references. This is most definitely LucasArts worship, but well, is there anything wrong with that? It does come down to you exploring the entire mansion, and then going through a sort of overworld, meeting various characters along the way. You got a gaming hippie which leads to something quite illogical, not the puzzle itself, but the comedy behind it. Some stuff does end up being quite hilarious. Overall, it goes for that sort of 80s Halloween kids movie made by someone like Spielberg. If you love stuff like that, you'll be right at home with this. Judging from this, it would come down to it being for a younger audience, and the gameplay of this proves it. It goes for the same approach as the LucasArts games where you have all the commands like look, push, open, etc. The difference with this one is that you need to click on the item and it automatically chooses the command for you. So my point with this is that most LucasArts fans are old enough to have kids, and I would actually recommend that they play this one first, because you can choose all the commands automatically. I find it to be a more accessible start for them. In fact, the vast majority of these puzzles are super simple and logical, like using a battery and a remote control, and then using that remote for the TV. It does go downhill later on when you unlock some more locations. For example, you have a skeleton key, but it only works for one lock. It makes you have to try to do all the keys every time. There isn't much in it as a minor complaint, but having it established that this is some great lockpick, and only being able to use it once was quite weird. The other one is when you reach the secret area. You gotta go through 2 mazes in a row, and although they aren't difficult, I'm sure if you're a fan of this channel you will know by now that I hate mazes as they provide no challenge in a good way, and it just comes down to trial and error. The awkward part is also the animations, where it seems like he has to be on a set pathway before entering a new area. The antique store was super disappointing, because you can only look at relevant items. It would have been so much fun to see comments on the regular ones. In fact, you can't even stay inside to look at the items. After the conversation, the character just leaves. It's funny because those 2 flaws really pissed me off when I did the Y2K the game review, but I'm kind of able to partially overlook it in this case because the overall experience is so much better. It does pick up when you finally enter the ship though. I'll leave it most as a surprise, but they have one cool thing. Like most LucasArts games, there are practically no game overs in this. There's only one instance of this, and it's if you don't wear a disguise. It does lead to something amusing too. Overall, the difficulty of this is an absolute joke. It took me like 2.5 hours to beat this game, and for some parts of it, it was just me waiting for a while to record some music for this video. But, If you're into the LucasArts kind of humor, or you want to play a game with your kids, I would highly recommend this. Thanks for watching.